My name is Linda Carter, and if you asked anyone who knew me back in the 90s, they'd tell you I was the woman who never stopped moving. I was 28 when Ethan's father, Greg, packed a single duffel bag one rainy Tuesday night in Chicago and left without so much as a goodbye note. Ethan was 6 years old enough to remember the sound of the front door closing, young enough to still ask every night for weeks afterward, "When's Daddy coming home?" I had no honest answer, so I gave him the only one I could. Hugs, bedtime stories, and the promise that we'd be okay, just the two of us. That promise became my religion. I worked as a registered nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, pulling graveyard shifts in the ICU because they paid the best differential. 12-hour nights turned into 16 when someone called in sick. I learned to nap in 20-minute bursts in the staff lounge, coffee going cold in styrofoam cups while I prayed the next patient would stabilize. On my days off, I cleaned houses for extra cash, scrubbing floors in suburbs I could never afford to live in, so Ethan could have new sneakers, a decent backpack, and later SAT prep books. I sold my mother's pearl necklace, the only heirloom I had left from her, to cover his first semester at community college before he transferred to Northwestern on a partial scholarship. Every time I handed over a check or signed a permission slip, I told myself it was temporary. One day he'd make it and I'd finally rest. Ethan never complained. That was the hardest part. He saw me come home at dawn smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, yet he'd still set the table for breakfast and leave little notes on the fridge. "You're the best mom ever." He studied like his life depended on it because he believed it did, for both of us. By high school, he was captain of the robotics team, valedictorian, and already interning at a small software startup. When he got accepted to Northwestern for computer science, I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't see. Not tears of sadness, tears of disbelief that my boy, the one I carried through every storm, was really going to make it. He graduated, landed a job at a rising tech company in Seattle, and within 2 years, he was pulling 6 figures plus stock options. The first thing he did with his signing bonus was buy me a small condo in a quiet Chicago suburb. No more apartment stairs, no more noisy neighbors. "Mom," he said over FaceTime, eyes shining, "you're retiring next year." No arguments. I laughed and told him I loved my job. But deep down, I started dreaming of mornings without alarms. Then came Emily. They met at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was 29, stunning in that effortless way, long dark hair, designer blazer, quick laugh that turned heads. Ethan called me the next day sounding like a teenager. "Mom, she's incredible. Smart, funny, driven. I think you'll really like her." When he brought her home for Thanksgiving that first year, I tried. I made my famous lasagna from scratch, set the table with the good plates, even bought a bottle of red wine I couldn't pronounce. Emily smiled politely, complimented the food, so vintage, I love it, but her eyes kept drifting to her phone. Later, when Ethan stepped out to take a call, she turned to me and said softly, "Mrs. Carter, Ethan's told me how hard you worked. It's really admirable. We're just trying to build something a little more modern, you know? Less traditional baggage." The word baggage landed like a slap, but I smiled through it. Mothers do that. We swallow pride so our children can keep theirs. Over the next 3 years, the comments grew sharper, though always wrapped in sweetness when Ethan was around. She called me Mrs. Carter. Even after I asked her to use Linda, she suggested, gently, that my old photo albums were clutter and that Ethan should update his aesthetic now that he was moving up in the world. Once at dinner, she laughed lightly and said, "We need a family vibe that matches where we're going, not where we came from." Ethan squeezed my hand under the table and changed the subject, but I felt the distance growing. Still, I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to believe she loved my son the way he deserved. So I poured my heart into the wedding gift I'd been planning for months, a leather-bound memory book. I spent late nights after shifts scanning old photos. Ethan at 6 blowing out birthday candles with only me singing. His scraped knees after his first bike ride. The day he got his acceptance letter to Northwestern. Me hugging him so tight he laughed. His college graduation where I stood in the crowd crying harder than anyone. Each page had a handwritten note from me. "This was the day I knew you'd change the world," or "I was never scared because I had you." It was everything I couldn't say out loud anymore, every sacrifice, Every sleepless night, every prayer whispered into the dark. The night before the wedding, I drove to their suite at the Four Seasons in Bellevue. My hands shook as I knocked. Emily opened the door in silk pajamas. Hair perfect even at 9 p.m. I held out the book. I made this for you both, so you can see who Ethan really is, where he came from. She didn't take it. Instead, she stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper, so Ethan, laughing with his groomsmen in the next room, wouldn't hear. After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore. You've done your job, Linda. You raised him. Now he's mine. You're just extra weight. Don't come tomorrow. Don't make it awkward. Spare us the drama. The hallway lights blurred. My throat closed. I turned and walked away, the book heavy against my chest like a stone. I don't remember the drive home. I only remember sitting on my couch at 2 a.m., staring at those pages, realizing that the woman my son was about to marry saw me not as family, but as something to be erased. That night, I made the hardest choice of my life. If I wasn't wanted in their future, I wouldn't force my way into their present. Tomorrow, for the first time in 26 years, I would not be there for my son. The morning of the wedding dawned gray and damp over the Seattle suburbs, the kind of weather that makes everything feel heavier. I woke before my alarm, habit from years of night shifts, and lay staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above me. My pale blue dress hung on the closet door like a ghost of what could have been. I had bought it months earlier at a small boutique in Bellevue because Ethan once said, offhandedly during a video call, "Mom, that color looks beautiful on you. You should wear it to the wedding." I'd smiled then, imagining myself sitting in the front row, watching my boy say his vows, finally seeing him happy and settled. Instead, I pulled the covers higher and stayed in bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. First one text, then another, then a steady stream. "Ethan, Mom, you up? Ceremony starts at 11. Can't wait to see you in that blue dress." A minute later, "Everything okay? You're usually the first one texting good morning." Then, "Mom, Emily said you weren't feeling well last night, but that doesn't sound like you. Call me when you wake up, please." Each message twisted the knife a little deeper. I could picture him in the groom's suite at the Four Seasons, already in his charcoal suit, tie not quite perfect because he always fumbled the knot when he was nervous. He'd be checking his phone every few minutes, trying to play it cool in front of his groomsmen, Jake, his college roommate, his cousin Mike from Portland, a couple of guys from work. They'd be joking, slapping him on the back, pouring coffee. But Ethan would keep glancing at the door, waiting for the one person who'd always been there. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes. The silence in my condo felt deafening. Around 9:30, my sister Karen arrived. She'd driven up from Tacoma in her navy mother-of-the-groom dress, heels clicking furiously on the hardwood as she let herself in with the spare key. She found me still in pajamas, coffee untouched on the counter. "Linda Marie Carter, what in God's name are you doing?" she demanded, hands on hips. "The entire family is at that venue. People are asking where you are. Ethan looks like he's about to throw up." I met her eyes, red-rimmed from crying all night, and told her everything. Word for word, Emily's whisper in the hotel hallway, the smirk, the way she'd called me extra weight. Karen listened without interrupting, then sank into the chair across from me like the air had been let out of her. "My God," she whispered. "She actually said that to your face? The night before her own wedding?" I nodded. She meant every word. Karen reached for my hand. "You're not going, are you?" "No. I can't sit there and smile while she erases me from his life." "I won't." She exhaled slowly. "People will talk. They'll say you're bitter, that you couldn't let go, that you abandoned him on his big day." "Let them," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "I've been judged my whole life for being a single mom, for working too much, for not having a real family. What's one more rumor?" Karen stayed another 20 minutes, trying to talk me into at least showing up for the photos, but I wouldn't budge. When she left, she hugged me tight and promised to text updates. "I love you," she said at the door. "And Ethan loves you. Don't forget that." The condo grew quiet again. I moved to the living room, window, and watched neighbors pull out of driveways in their Sunday best. Heading to the venue 20 minutes away, cars full of people who'd known Ethan since he was a kid. Teachers, old neighbors, friends of Greg's who'd stayed in touch out of guilt. They were all going to celebrate what I thought was the happiest chapter of his life. By 10:45, the text from Ethan had stopped. In their place came a single voicemail. His voice cracked on the first word. "Mom, it's almost time. Emily keeps saying you're probably just running late, but I know you. You're never late for me. If something's wrong, please just tell me. I need you there. You're the reason I'm even standing here today. Please." I pressed the phone to my chest until it hurt. Every instinct screamed to grab my keys, drive like hell, walk into that ballroom and take my place in the front row. But then I remembered Emily's eyes, cold, certain, triumphant. "You're just extra weight." If I went, I'd be proving her right in some twisted way. I'd be the clinging mother who couldn't stay away. So I stayed. At 11:05, Karen texted, "Ceremony delayed 15 minutes. Ethan pacing. Emily in bridal suite getting touch-ups. Everyone whispering." At 11:20, Jake just ran out of the groom's suite looking like he saw a ghost. Something's happening. At 11:35, Linda. "Oh my God, Ethan just stormed into the bridal suite." Raised voices. Guests are starting to murmur. I sat frozen on the couch, heart hammering. Part of me hoped it was nothing. A mix-up, nerves, anything but the truth I already suspected. But deep down I knew. At 11:50, Karen called. Her voice was shaking. "Linda, the wedding's off." Ethan just announced it to the whole room, mic in hand. Said there would be no ceremony today because Emily betrayed him. Something about messages, an affair, and money. People are in shock. Emily's mother is screaming that it's all your fault. I closed my eyes. A strange calm settled over me. Not joy, not relief, but something quieter. Vindication, maybe, or simply recognition. The mask had slipped, and my son had finally seen what I'd seen for years. Everything was unraveling, and I hadn't even been there to pull the thread. The Bellevue ballroom at the 4. Seasons had been transformed into something out of a magazine. Spread, crystal chandeliers, casting soft golden light, white roses and eucalyptus cascading from every arch, 300 folding chairs draped in ivory linen, each tied with a satin ribbon. Guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns filled the space, murmuring excitedly, phones already out to capture the moment. The string quartet played, Pachelbel's canon in D on a small raised platform near the altar, the melody floating over the low hum of anticipation. Ethan stood at the front in his charcoal gray suit, hands clasped behind his back to hide the slight tremble. His groomsmen flanked him, Jake on his right, cracking nervous jokes under his breath to keep things light. Ethan managed a half smile, but his eyes kept flicking toward the double doors at the back of the room, the ones his mother should have walked through by now. Inside the bridal suite down the hall, Emily sat before a lighted mirror, while her makeup artist dabbed at her already flawless face. Her ivory gown, custom Vera Wang, 5 figures easy, pooled around her like spilled cream. She laughed at something her maid of honor said, scrolling through her phone for last-minute Instagram stories. Everything was perfect on the surface, until it wasn't. At 11:32 a.m., Jake burst back into the groom's prep room, phone clutched so tightly his knuckles were white. "Ethan," he said, voice low and urgent, "you need to see this, right now. Don't ask questions, just look." Ethan took the phone. The screen showed a chain of text messages forwarded from Emily's best friend's ex-boyfriend, someone who apparently still had access to old group chats. The timestamps were recent, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, even one from last Thursday. Explicit, flirtatious, plans for one last weekend in Portland before the wedding, and interspersed were screenshots of emails, Emily to her father, her mother, even her financial advisor. Phrases jumped out. "Once we're married, his salary hits 6 figures plus, bonuses enough to clear the debt and restart the business. The prenup is airtight. Dad's lawyer made sure most of the liquid assets flow our way if anything goes wrong. He's so trusting. Doesn't even read the fine print." Ethan's face drained of color. The room went silent. His groomsmen exchanged glances, unsure whether to speak. Ethan scrolled again, breath shallow. Then he handed the phone back to Jake without a word, turned and walked out. He didn't knock on the bridal suite door. He pushed it open. Emily looked up, smiling at first, radiant, expectant. "Babe, you're early. Come see, the veil just got pinned perfectly." Ethan held up his own phone now. The same messages forwarded to him by Jake. "Explain this." The smile faltered. Her eyes darted to the screen, then to her bridesmaids, then back to him. That's not what it looks like. Someone's photoshopping things, trying to ruin us. Probably. Don't, Ethan said, voice dangerously quiet. Don't lie to me again. You've been seeing him. You've been planning this with your parents. The prenup. The accounts. You told my mother she wasn't part of this family anymore. You said she was extra weight. And all this time, you were using me to bail out your family's mess. Emily stood, gown rustling. Ethan, listen. I made mistakes, okay? But I love you. The money stuff. That's just my parents being protective. They want the best for us. For us? He laughed, bitter and broken. You wanted my paycheck, my stock options, my future, not me. The bridesmaids froze. One reached for Emily's arm, but she shook her off. You're overreacting. Your mom's been poisoning you against me from the start. She's jealous. My mom isn't even here, Ethan cut in. Because you told her not to come. You made sure she stayed away so you could isolate me. And now I see why. He turned and walked out. Emily called after him, Ethan, wait. But he didn't stop. In the ballroom, the quartet had shifted to a softer piece. Guests were starting to fidget, checking watches. At 11:47, Ethan stepped onto the small stage where the officiant usually stood. He took the microphone from its stand. The music faded as the room quieted. Everyone, he said, voice steady despite the tremor underneath. There will be no wedding today. A collective gasp rolled through the crowd. Phones came up faster. I just learned that my fiancée has betrayed my trust in ways I can't forgive. She's been unfaithful. She's been dishonest about her intentions. And she disrespected the one person who gave everything for me, my mother. The woman who raised me alone, who worked nights so I could have a future. Emily told her she wasn't family anymore, that she was extra. And today I realized the only person who didn't belong here was the one lying to all of us. Emily appeared at the back of the room, veil askew, mascara already streaking. Ethan, please, this is a misunderstanding. Don't do this! He looked at her for a long moment. You did this, not me. Emily's mother stood up, voice shrill. This is your mother's fault. She's been jealous and controlling from day one. Ethan's gaze hardened. My mother isn't here to defend herself because your daughter made sure of it. She told her not to come, and now everyone knows why. Murmurs turned to outright whispers. Some guests nodded in quiet sympathy. Others stared in stunned silence. Emily's father rose, face red, muttering about lawsuits, but no one paid attention. Ethan set the microphone down. He walked down the center aisle, past shocked faces, past floral arrangements, past the life he almost stepped into. He didn't look back. Outside in the hallway, he leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His phone buzzed at Karen texting. Ethan just called it off. The whole place is in chaos. Where are you going? He typed one word back, home. And for the first time that day, he meant it. The sun had already dipped below the horizon. When the front door of my condo opened that evening, I heard the soft click of the latch, the familiar squeak of the hinges I'd meant to oil for months. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crossed the entryway. I didn't move from the couch. I'd spent the afternoon in a strange limbo, phone in hand, refreshing Karen's sporadic updates until they stopped altogether. The last one read, He's leaving the venue. Heading your way. Love you. Ethan appeared in the doorway to the living room, still wearing his charcoal suit jacket, though the tie was gone and the top button of his shirt undone. His hair was mussed, as if he'd run his hands through it 100 times. His eyes, red-rimmed, exhausted, found mine immediately. For a long second, neither of us spoke. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of me. Just like he used to when he was little and needed to confess something. A broken window, a bad grade, a fight at school. Mom, he said, voice cracking on the single word. He reached for my hands. His were cold. I'm so sorry. I felt the dam inside me break. Tears I'd held back all day spilled over. I pulled him forward until his forehead rested against my shoulder, the way he used to when nightmares woke him at 3 a.m. He was 32 now, broad-shouldered and taller than me by a foot. But in that moment he was still my 6-year-old boy. Scared and sorry and needing his mother. I was blind, he whispered into my sweater. She made me question everything, little comments here and there about how overprotective you were, how you didn't understand our generation, how I needed space to grow. I told myself it was just wedding stress. I told myself you'd come around. But you were right all along. About her. About everything. I stroked the back of his head, fingers threading through hair that still smelled faintly of the hotel's styling gel. I didn't want to be right, sweetheart. I wanted you to be happy. He pulled back just enough to look at me. I almost wasn't. I almost signed away the next 10 years of my life to people who saw me as a paycheck. The prenup, God, Mom, the clauses were insane. If we divorced in the first 5 years, most of my earnings, bonuses, stock vesting, everything would have gone straight to accounts they controlled. They even had language about family business reinvestment. It wasn't protection. It was a heist. I nodded slowly. I'd suspected as much from the fragments Karen had relayed, but hearing it from him made it real. And the affair? 3 weeks ago. She was texting him about meeting up after our engagement party, planning it like it was nothing, like I was already background noise. His voice broke again. She told you weren't family anymore. She said it to your face, and I wasn't there to defend you. I let her push you out. You didn't know, I said softly. That's what hurts the most. She made sure you didn't. He sat back on his heels, wiping his eyes with the heel of his hand. I called it off in front of everyone, took the mic like some bad movie scene, told 300 people there would be no wedding. Because she betrayed me and disrespected you. Emily's mom screamed that it was all your fault, that you'd poisoned me. Her dad threatened lawsuits right there in the aisle. I just walked out. A small, surprised laugh escaped me. You walked out? Yeah, didn't even look back. Jake followed me to the parking lot, handed me my keys, said, "Go home to your mom." So I did. I reached over to the coffee table where the memory book still sat. Untouched, since I'd brought it home the night before. I slid it toward him. She never even opened it. Ethan lifted the cover gently, as if the pages might crumble. He turned slowly, baby pictures, scraped knees, science fair ribbons. The day I surprised him with tickets to his first Mariners game, even though we could barely afford groceries that month. Under each photo was my handwriting, short notes, memories. Love poured onto paper because I never knew how else to say it. He traced one line with his finger. This was the day I knew you'd change the world. His voice was barely above a whisper. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I still do, I said. We sat like that for a long time. Him on the floor, me on the couch, the book open between us. Eventually he stood, pulled me up, and wrapped his arms around me properly. We cried again, quieter this time. Healing tears. In the weeks that followed, the truth spread quietly at first, then louder. Jake and a few others from the tech circle started talking. Emily's family had a trail of bad investments, unpaid loans, a small business on the brink of collapse. The prenup wasn't standard. It was predatory, drafted by a shady family attorney. Ethan quietly closed every joint account she'd pushed him to open, paid off the credit line they'd quietly taken in his name to cover wedding expenses, and blocked every number. No dramatic confrontation, just clean cuts. Emily tried once, showed up at his office lobby with red eyes and apologies, but security walked her out. Her social media posts shifted from tearful victim narratives to vague rants about toxic in-laws, but the comments turned against her fast. Seattle's tech community is small. Word travels. Months later, Ethan surprised me with plane tickets to Italy, 2 first-class seats, 2 weeks in Tuscany, our first real vacation ever. As we sat on the back porch one evening in early fall, watching the sun set over Lake Washington, he reached over and squeezed my hand. "Mom," he said, "I used to think success was the job title, the stock portfolio, the view from the high-rise. But I was wrong. Family, that's what lasts, and you've always been mine. I almost lost sight of that. I won't again." I squeezed back, throat tight. "You didn't lose me, Ethan. You came home. You came home." For the first time in 26 years, the weight I'd carried alone felt lighter. Not gone, never gone, but shared. And that, I realized, was the real beginning.